Hi, Stephen Green here from the Property Investment Academy, and welcome to our podcast series. I get the feeling that they might have the name changed because Tommy just suggested that we call them Cup of Tea with Stevie G. So it might end up sticking. So I'm here today with one of my mentees, Tommy Iser, a great guy. He's got a lot of experience in the property world. Got a construction background, straight from school, but I'll let him share that with you. He's been taking some great action, and I think he's a great guy. He says it as it is, and he can share some great information with us. So welcome today, Tommy Iser.
Morning.
How are you?
Nervous.
A little bit nervous?
Yeah, probably.
Is this
all right once I get into it?
This is you're not normally the type of guy who's nervous, Tommy. Tell me why you're feeling a bit nervous.
Just the cameras.
The cameras, mate.
It's not the questions really, just the cameras.
So, for the people out there that don't know Tommy, tell us a little bit about Tommy. Who's Tommy? What's your background? What is it exactly you do? Tell us about that.
33-year-old, from Redcar all my life. My girlfriend, my daughter, self-employed as plumbing and heating engineer. I completed elite in March. Had a busy year. Yeah, Jack the lad, probably.
Jack the lad, yeah, I'd agree with that.
I have been at times.
We'll come back to, you mentioned elite there, we'll come back to that a little bit later on. Just tell us a little bit about Tommy then, from childhood. Give us a little bit about your background of who you are. Let us let the audience know a little bit more about you.
Right then, I suppose I was quiet when I was growing up. I always had that entrepreneurial side to me, so whether it was selling club biscuits at school or 25 pence cigarettes, I've always been looking for a way to make money. Trying to think, I don't know what else really.
So when did that start? When did the first thing start with these selling the cigarettes and things like that?
Right, the first thing I ever did was in primary school, and my dad worked for a company, and he had he used to get little pen sets to give to his customers. When he anything that was left, I used to knock them out in primary school. So there was, I think that was my first one until I got caught. Trying to think what else. And then, yeah, I suppose when I was in secondary school, it was, I started off with the club biscuits from Safeway.
Tell us about the club biscuits. What exactly do you mean about the club biscuits?
Well, I used to go to Safeway every night after school, and I'd buy 3 packs for £1, and I used to take them to school the next day and sell them for £1 a packet. So I was making good money from being 11, 12-year-old, 13, and then I was going to say there was a demand for selling cigarettes. So I used to buy a packet and then I used to sell them individually, make a few quid at the time, to be honest.
Brilliant. So, where do you think this came from? What was the thing with selling biscuits and cigarettes? Where did it come from? Was it someone who influenced you in that? Did you watch?
I suppose I got brought up in that environment. So whether it was my brothers selling cars, caravans, my granddad was a businessman. He had a coal merchants, haulage, property. So I suppose just growing up, part of my background is it was always...
It's been in your blood.
Yeah, it's in my blood, yeah, just to try and make a few quid. So, yeah, it's always been there from an early age, to be honest.
And how did you feel about that? Was that something that you just naturally did, or did it, did you, like for me, I did similar sort of things. So as a kid, I got one of the local footballers, Tony Mowbray. I managed to get his autograph and my dad photocopied it, and exactly the same thing. I found a way quite quickly how I could exchange these autographs for pens, pencils, rubbers, anything really that I could get my hands on. But I used to find that exciting as well. It was the buzz of that transfer of exchange of things. Was it similar sort of thing for yourself?
Yeah, it always used to be. It all come natural, and I suppose I was going to say I probably picked it up from all my family, cousins, my brothers, my mum, definitely. All come. Yeah, it was just, I don't know, maybe not the buzz, but it was always just looking at ways just to make a few quid. So. I used to do quite well. I think I had more money when I was in school than I do now, yeah, to be honest. But yeah, just all natural. Got brought up, always doing a few bits and bobs, so what was I going to say, yeah. And then it progressed into mobile phones, computers, fireworks, anything I could get my hands on, to be honest.
Brilliant. And I believe, I know we've spoke about this before, I forget this, but so what's your age now? You say 33?
33 now.
33, yeah. But you actually bought your first property when you were quite young, didn't you? Your first investment property, how old were when you actually bought that?
My first investment property was, I think I was 18. Wow. And it was a block of garages. I got left some money, and I went to see a financial advisor, and he said, "Oh, we're going to put it into this." I remember one of the names was Japcom Tech, and I said, "I'd rather put it on a racehorse, to tell you the truth." And he said, "Oh, put it underneath me mattress." Anyway, the company I was working for, Slingsby's Interiors in Redcar, they were into property bits and bobs. Anyway, I know. The boss, he had a bit too much going on at the minute, but he'd been offered a block of garages. I think they were £10,000. Anyway, I says, right, I'll have them off you if you don't mind. Did that. And at the time, there was eight garages. I ended up getting bid up by somebody else, but I went up. And this is probably going back to my childhood about being able to do a deal. It was a bank holiday weekend, and the bloke who he'd outbidded me by £500, but he just forgot about it with it being a bank holiday weekend. Anyway, I had £1,000 at home in my safe, so I went up to just like this old bloke's house, took the £1,000 with him, did the deal, agreed a price, shook his hand, give him the £1,000 as a deposit, and secured the deal there and then. And I suppose at the time, a street house in Redcar would have been £70,000 maybe. And that had got me, I'm trying to think of the rent, maybe £400 a month at the time.
Yeah.
But I knew straight away, I thought, if I can get £10 a garage, which I did, if you compared, obviously, a set of £10,000 garages or £11,000 garages to a street house at 7 times, and you're getting the same rent or thereabouts, I thought it's a no-brainer. And then actually a couple of years later,
so that was £10 a week per garage, is that right?
Yeah, per garage.
£10 per week. Yeah, okay.
£80 a week. So that was basically about what you're getting for a street house rent. And then the bloke who outbid me, I ended up selling them to him for $31,000 2 years later.
Brilliant.
And then with that money, I put it down as I was 21 at the time, and I got 2 flats. So I used that, built up a bit, had a few years rent off it, and then I got me 2 flats that I've still got now.
So you've always had an eye for it. So these garages, was that was it? Would you say it was your boss that led you that way, or was it this urge that you've had from a child, from the chocolate biscuits and the cigarettes? Was it that entrepreneurial side in you?
From being a kid, like I say, my granddad, he had property, and my mum used to run that side for him. And well, after he died, really, so I always got took around places, picking rent up, dealing with tenants, bits and bobs. So I'd always saw that property was probably a good way just to make. I wouldn't have called it a passive income at the time because I'd never really heard of it being sort of described as that, even until the like recently, really. But I always knew that I needed to get my hands on as many as I could to create an income, really, and maybe not an easy income, but to create an income without having to go out and get it. And then the company I did serve my time at, they were the same. They used to buy them. I was going to say anything that come on the market that they could get cheap. They buy them, do them up, send like us in, and they had quite a few properties themselves. But obviously, speaking to my boss, or I still call him my boss actually, speaking to Mark, I used to say that he'd make a lot. Well, he used to have rent coming in every week. Really, good houses, good tenants. So yeah, I suppose through Mark, my family, a couple of older people I knew, they all seemed to be doing well, and they all had one thing in common: they all had property. So that was that
was the path you were taking as well.
Yep.
Sorry, I've got an annoying cough at the moment. It's something I've struggled to shake off. So there's a couple of questions I'd like to know, and I think it's very interesting to share with the with our listeners. So these garages, you bought them out. Did you say 10,000?
I was supposed to buy them for 10,000, but in the meantime, the builder who had the block next door, he come to buy them, and he went to see the owner, and he said, "Oh, well, I'll give you £10,500."
So it was 11,000.
And I ended up, when I went up to shake his hand, I paid 11 for them.
Right. But, and you sold them for 31. What? 2 years later? 30?
Yeah, I think it'll have been roughly 2 years later.
Yeah. Not a bad deal, eh?
No, maybe a bit longer, maybe 3 years. But
yeah.
I think I've had my flats 12 years, so I was probably 21. So
right.
Give it 2 to 3 years, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
But that was definitely. I would have had. I would have bought a lot more garages, to be honest, if I could have got them, just for the money that they cost and the rent that you got off them, compared to street houses. So I still.
Did you ever get him a drink for that?
Get a drink?
Your boss for that 20 grand you made in a couple of years?
He ripped me off my wages every week for till you sack me. If you watch this, so no, I didn't really give him a drink.
All right, but okay.
He had his pound the flesh out of me whilst I worked for him.
So definitely. We're all quits, you could say then.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of questions on from that then. So what happened after that? So you've bought these couple of flats. What happened after that? Because I think, didn't you stay a little bit stagnant for a while? You didn't really move on, is that right?
Right. So I got my 2 flats. And then, to be quite honest, I split up with my girlfriend and went on a bender for a few years. So that took my eye off. Instead of saving me money up how I used to, I spent it all going out, partying and everything like that. Until I built my own house, the house that I live in at the moment.
So you built your own house?
Yeah.
From scratch?
From scratch.
Tell us about that.
Right, so basically, let me think. My family owned a piece of land. It was my granddad's. Then it come down to my mum having a plot, my auntie, my 2 cousins, and myself and my 2 brothers. So basically, yeah, some people sold their share. We decided to build it ourselves, and then my plan was to sell it, but with a profit. Although I hadn't done anything for a few years, probably because my old, like, the way I sort of got brought up with really was save your deposit 25%, put it down on a buy to let, save your 25. But I suppose when I was young and I was spending all my money on alcohol. Yeah, I didn't progress really because I wasn't saving my deposits up.
Yeah, and I think that's it tends to be the traditional approach. I did exactly the same thing of try and buy the new build property, save a deposit, try and wait for it to go up in value, and quite quickly I learned that I'd used up all this money and it was a little bit, right, now what do I do? Shit.
Yeah.
And I think that seems to be the approach most people tend to take at the start, and for me certainly that was when I learned right, okay, I've hit this sticking point, how am I going to get around it? And that's when I first started looking at buying below market value, and I know that's something that you do and you do quite effectively. So so you've built this we'll come on to that, so you've built this new build property, and what year was that?
It got signed off 2010, I think.
2010, and then you've not done anything from that point up until this year, is that right? So you'd had...
Yeah, so basically from us getting well, it didn't go smoothly for a few different reasons. Probably a clash of personalities with my brothers, so that took longer than it should have done really. But when we got it done, all signed off, it'll have been I think it was 2012, because the insurance has just run, like the indemnity insurance has just run out. Is that what you call it? Yeah, the insurance has just run out this year, so didn't go smooth. Plenty of learning curves. What I did then was we put it on the market. We struggled to sell it. Probably because with all the new builds going up in the area, I was going to say, so I ended up moving in with my girlfriend I'm with at the moment, and then my plan was sell it, get me money out, put so much into another down on a house to live in, and then invest the rest. But my old-fashioned way of thinking was, oh well, whilst I've got that money in there, the bigger deposit I put down on it, the less my mortgage is going to be every month. Where now I'm trying to get the money back out because I know what I can do with it, instead of thinking like it's the 1990s and
I think a little bit
mortgage down there.
A little bit like me, you were living in that one, weren't you? We've just had a power cut there, and I think that's what us developers tend to do. I'm certainly living in a building site at the moment, building the house bigger and bigger, and we've had it looks like we've had the power go off, so maybe we can get that turned back on. You'll have seen that as you come in, and I believe that's the same for yourself, though, Tommy, that you've lived in that while you were doing that as well. Is that right? You were
no, we'd actually finished it. Apart from carpets, it was all decorated, so basically it was...
So you weren't living in this one, it was separate to your own house, was it?
No, it was on... We'd completed it to sell. Right, it was on the market, but I was living in a flat at the time, and I got my new girlfriend, and whilst that was stood empty, I thought, right, I'll move in. The house is going to look better furnished, carpets, furniture in, because basically it was just concrete floors. So I thought, if we can get in, put curtains up, make it look lived in, it'll help sell it. Yeah.
No, I agree. And it's something that I've often used, the same technique as that, as making it look lived in, put furniture in, especially when you're selling and things like that. I think I picked that up from one of Sarah Beanie's shows back probably 10 years ago. Oh, lights are back on again, power's back on. So I want to ask you a couple of things. So we've moved on up to this point. What exactly was it that attracted you to the training with myself? Because you've obviously had this period from 210, 212 where you haven't really done anything up to 218, and then you've gone on the training with ourselves. What was it exactly that made you do that? What gave you that mojo back to think, right, I'm getting back into this again and I'm moving forward?
Right, so I was working for a firm, for a plumbing firm, and basically I was at was earning a wage where that was it forever. Unless I was to go into management or something, which probably doesn't suit me, I was earning the wage that I'd have earned that for the next 20, 30 years till I retired. So I suppose the first thing with it was, I thought, right, I'm going to have a big 10 years from 30 to 40. So my first thing was, put my notice in, went self-employed. And I suppose that was taking action, but I didn't look at it in that way of how I would do now. So that was my first thing. And then I thought, right, if I want to get these houses and bits and bobs, because I always knew that I needed to get more, and I used to have like a target of 5 in my head. So the 2 rental properties that I did have, I thought, right, I need to get to 5. And that had cleared me, my bills, everything every month. And then I thought, when I'm working for myself, I'll be able to work at times that suits me, really. Anyway, started on my own, had a good first year. And then it was my brother-in-law, Nicky, who was on Elite, like the first course. And basically, I was just looking at some of the results he was getting. I thought, right, I'm going to have a go of it. If he can do it.
As a novice, yeah?
As a novice, I thought I can do it when I've got, obviously been in the building game for 16 years. If he can do it, I can do it. So I thought, right, just need a bit of it.
Yeah.
I went on the one day course in December. And that one day course really was just enough to make my mind up. I thought, right, I need to do it. The money, I suppose that was a problem. When you've been brought up in that sort of old-fashioned way, or you get your money and you do things like this, and it was like to go spend that on something. To me, and I suppose to everybody else, it was just massive.
Yeah.
Really, and it was like, oh well, what I could do with that instead is this and that. But turns out, from me going on the one day course, I think personally, on the one day course, I enjoyed the mindset. Like the little bits and bobs, I'd started reading a few books that Nicky had told me to. And then, I thought, right, I need a piece of this. I think I'd come away on the Friday, Page on the Saturday, and then that was it. Rest history, I suppose.
Rest history. So just for the listeners, just to because you mentioned Nicky there. Now, the training that we actually done, Nicky was one of the first 4 guys that I trained at elite level on the 7-day training, and he had no previous experience. He had nothing at all, did he? Literally just he excuse me. When Nicky first came to us, the first thing he said was, I want to buy a property for my son for when he's older. That was his initial thing. We're going to bring Nicky on to one of the podcasts, so we'll hear his story. So I don't want to steal all his thunder, but he's built a substantial portfolio, hasn't he, within a short period of time. So I can see how you on the outside looking in at your brother-in-law, guy with no experience, no building experience really, like yourself as well, has come in and made such a big impact. I can see how that would have had an influence on yourself. So for the listeners, the training, the elite level, what you've done is 7 days intense training with 12 months mentorship on the back of that. So tell us what you've done since elite. So you've done your elite training in March this year.
March, yeah.
What have you done since then?
Right. So since coming off elite, I partnered up with Luke Collins, a lad who I went to school with.
We've lost the power again. Let's just keep going.
Yes, we'd already, even before we went on elite, we'd spoke. Obviously, we were in the group on Facebook. We'd had a chat. Anyway, we decided to get picnics in town.
So what's picnics? Just tell us what picnics is. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so picnics, to me, obviously living in Redcar, it's the old fishmongers. Just an old building that had problems with burglaries. They'd been in whilst it had been stood empty, and I think it become a burden for the person who owned it. I know the person moved to Spain and they wanted out of it, so I know Steve helped us to get it. But basically, yeah, it was a shop with 3 flats above it.
Yeah.
3 one-bedroom flats.
And what have you done with that?
So, first of all, because we wanted to get, obviously, the way we've structured the deal is, we wanted to get into a quick turnaround and get it sort of rented out to cover its costs. So, I think within about 6 weeks of getting the keys, we had tenants moving. So we've done quite a lot of work, new kitchens, new bathrooms, fully decorated, new carpets. Yeah, so I think it'll have been about 6 weeks to the date of getting the keys that we had people moving.
And the bar downstairs, that's finished now. I've just seen the opening of that. So tell us about the bar. So what have you done on that bottom floor?
So, what was I going to say? Basically, what we were going to do with it was obviously strip it out because it smelt of fish. So we've took the floor up because that was ingrained with the smell of fish. Took all the walls back. We opened it up because basically it was a little shop at the front with a little single door, but we've opened it right up so anybody who was going to move in the future, there was a nice area like to use really.
Yeah.
So we did that. We'd spoke to Damon and Sean who've took it over about it, and then they said they were going to do it, and then they weren't sure, and then they come back to us just as I think we'd straightened all the walls up, put a new floor down. We were going to show a few people around, then they come back to us. This is what we want to do. Works for us. We've come to a few agreements since we've done it. They've gone in, and then basically they've just the job that they've done in it is unbelievable, really.
Yeah. So that's what now? Tell us what that is exactly. What is the bar? What's it been called, and what is it?
The bar's called the Prosecco Quarter.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's probably the smartest bar that's open down that end of town.
Yeah.
The Northern Quarter, I think they call it.
Yeah.
Now.
And that was the opening last week, was it? Or was it 2 weeks ago or last week?
Last week.
And how did that go for the opening night?
Oh, they rang the bell with it, to be honest. And I think the way they've done it, they haven't gone in cutting corners or anything like that. They've gone in and done a proper job, which is good for us. They've spent a lot of money in there. The way they're doing it is they're going to be there for a long time.
Yeah, and that's good for you, yeah.
So that's good. That's good from our side of it. Instead of one of where they just pop up, put a pallet and something in place.
And it must be rewarding to see that you're the owner of this building with the flats and that bar, and especially the attention it's got, because it's been in the media and stuff like that, hasn't it? I've seen a couple of articles in the local papers and things like that. So how does it feel to actually to own a bar like that and be part of something like that?
When you've grown up in Redcar and you see all these buildings that have, I suppose, maybe in a rundown area, or I say rundown, it's like really on its way back up now, but I was stood outside a bar having a drink in the summer, and you look at the building and you think, it's mine that. And then when you see what it was like when we first got the keys to what it's been turned into now, it's unbelievable, really. And it's great to see Damon, Sean and Cameron doing that job, investing in the area, and to see it go from one to the other, unbelievable, to be honest.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, I'm proud the fact that I've taught you and showed you how to work on these larger projects, and for you to go on to do that and to make a good profit from this as well. Because what's the value of that building? What did you actually buy it for, and what is it valued at now?
We paid 120 for it.
So 120,000. Back in, when was that?
It completed in June.
In June, okay. And you've just completed it now?
So the bar's open. We've just had a bit more plastering done in the hall, stairs and landing. So we just need to decorate that. But we've spoke about getting the valuation on it, and we're hoping for, I think conservatively, we should do 180,000 all day long. But I think it could, with a job that's been done, they're all rented out, I think it could achieve anywhere up to possibly even 220.
Okay, that's, so £100,000 equity gain. What was the spend on that job?
The spend on it, without us doing the bar, I think we've been into it for about 30. We've just been putting everything together at the moment, so I think 30, even maybe up to 40. But like I say, we've had good rent coming off it from more or less straight away. That's covered all the fees every week. Yeah. It's helped us pay builders, bits and bobs. So yeah, I think say 30. But with it being our first project as well, maybe went over a bit. But there's been a lot of learning curves with it as well. People who've had doing jobs, dealing with merchants, everything really. Yeah. Dealing with tenants, I suppose.
And I think that's just part of that learning curve. When you're doing bigger projects like that, so there's potentially there's at least a sort of 30k equity gain.
To be quite honest, what we were going to do is we were just going to go in. The flats really didn't need. They were there. There was a kitchen there. They needed a bit of money spending on them, so we could have done it. I'd been round and I'd priced it that would do it for about 11,000. So that was the original plan. But if we were just going to go in and titivate it, obviously our aim is to maximise. So this is something that we've sort of learned. The way we're doing it, we need to maximise, get the building up to as high a value as possible. So what we'd spoke about, so between me and Luke, we'd said, right, look, if you go in and do this, that'd have been okay, but there was 1-bedroom flats empty in the area. So what we decided that we were going to do was, look, we need to be able to compete with the others and make them to a high standard. So, like, thinking about that, we were like, okay, we can do it for this, but we want to increase the value as much as possible.
To get as much back out of the back end when you...
As much out as the back end, and to give us a better chance of getting the rent in it every week. And I know if they were to become empty, we could fill them straight away. So tell me what the rent is. What's the profit margin on the rent, and what's your actual mortgage payments, and what is the income of the rent? What are you cash flowing on that particular building? The rent at the moment, we're getting $480 a week between the shop and the 3 flats. Okay. $480 a week.
And what's the mortgage amount?
The mortgage...
It's about to be flipped onto a mortgage now, is that right?
Yeah, so we spoke about valuation, but I expect the mortgage to be about 5%, with it being mixed use. Okay. If we say we were to get 200,000, what would that be? Top of my head. 10,000 a year maybe. I
Yeah.
can't think off the top of my head, but it's going to contribute massively to mine and Luke's income.
Yeah. So if you're
I
getting...
don't have these figures down to be honest, but...
okay, yeah, I know I'm shotting you on the spot a bit here. So if let's say if it's 75% of 200 grand, so we're at 150,000.
Yeah.
So
£7,500 on the mortgage.
7,500.
Yeah,
okay, there
sorry.
we've triggered it. So 7,500 going out. Sorry, on the mortgage, and you've got 480 a week coming in.
Yeah.
Which is what, about 23, 24 grand a year. We've lost the lights again.
I think
23, 24 grand a year. So
26,000 off the top of my head.
26,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're clearing best part of £19,000. I guess you've got a bit of insurance and things like that to come out of that. But
there'll be insurance. The way we're doing it, we've got a few bills to pay out of that. Wi-Fi, because we'll put Wi-Fi in just to help it. Someone moves into a flat.
Okay, yeah.
They've got Wi-Fi. They've got I was going to say the council tax included in that price. So we're paying that just to make it easier for the people who are using it. They turn up with a bag.
Straight in. Okay, so what do you think you're clearing out of that? Maybe it's 15 grand or something? About 15 grand?
We're going to clear 15,000.
You're going to clear 15 off just one deal alone, which is brilliant. Massive congratulations on that. So what, in total, because I know we're quite pushed on for time here, and I know you're busy, I know you've got to get yourself back to work, you're actually... jumped straight into this today from in between your jobs. What jobs have you got on today? You fitting a boiler or something like that, is it?
I should be fitting a boiler, but I was going to say, I got up this morning, about to price a job, and I've been around 2 other projects that me and Luke are doing.
So you're still on the look, yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me what else you've been up to in regards to... I don't want you to go into full detail because I know you've been up to so much, and we'd be here for a week if we were to talk into all the stuff that you and Luke have been doing, because it's massively inspirational. I'm hoping that we can get Luke onto one of the podcasts as well at some point. So in total, what's the amount of property portfolio that you've built up since March this year? Tell us what that figure is roughly.
Right. There'll be 420.
So £420,000.
With the bits that I've done with Luke. I've actually got a property completing this week. That back end's going to be, the value was said 120, but I think it'll be higher, possibly 140. We could have had a few more, but would have been overstretching ourselves, so we knocked one of them on the head.
I'm going to come back to that because I've heard you've been overstretching yourself a little bit as well. So, £420,000 of property you've built up since March this year, and massive congratulations on that. That's very, very impressive. What income have you cleared out of that? So after all expenditure, after all mortgages, what are you actually cash flowing from all of those properties since March?
Right. So obviously we've got the shop and the 3 flats done. Waiting to put those on a mortgage, so that's going to bring us in about 15,000. The other 2 properties that we've got, they should be completed early January. I'll say the middle of January. One of them is going to bring us in $650 a month. So that's one that we've put a dormer on. So we've got a 2-bedroom bungalow. We've changed it, put a great big dormer on, raised a pitch of the roof. Again, to maximise the profit. We've turned it into a 5-bed, and that's going to clear, I think it's 7,500 a year.
Brilliant.
Sorry, it's going to get, the rent will be about 7,200, 7,500. And I think that's going to put about £4,000 a year into the pot.
Right.
The other one,
brilliant.
I was going to say, we bought it cheap, and that one's going to do. We've done it as a 5-bed HMO at full occupancy. It'll do 25,000, maybe 27, I think.
Right.
So between those, the 3 flats that are completing this week in Gisborough, I think I'll replace my plumbing wage that I set out when I went self-employed. By March, I think I'll replace the wage, replace my income really.
So you become completely financially free. So that'll be by what? March, did you say?
Yeah, should be March.
So in 12 months you've become completely financially free.
I will have done.
Which is absolutely brilliant. I'm not taking anything away from you because it's amazing that you've both done that. I do know you're a massive action taker. I know Luke is as well. Tell me about you overstretching a bit too much, because this is something that I talk about a lot, and I did warn you of this, and I believe you have overstretched at times, haven't you? Tell me about that and how much have you overstretched, and what does that look like?
Right, overstretching. To be brutally honest, with the information that you get, and the possibilities are endless with it really, because you know how to achieve it. All this, what was I going to say? You've got it in your head. You're thinking, look, this time next year, I'm going to be, I'll be able to get up, take my daughter to school, and because of that, and you're thinking, right, well, if we do this and if we do that and if we do this and if we do that, but you can get caught up in it, maybe not lose your way, because the way we have done it, I was going to say, yeah, we're in a really good position, but we were going to buy a pub to convert into 10 flats, and it was lucky that it got pulled really, because they wanted us to complete in a certain amount of time, which we weren't comfortable with. But if we were to do that, it'd have probably killed us.
So what has the overstretching done? Tell me what does that look like with regard, I'm guessing cash flow, right? Because that's what I always say, cash flow is king, and that is your only threat in property. Yeah, how desperate has that cash flow got? How low have you stretched things?
I had to look down my van seat for my dinner money when I've been working.
Wow.
So that's, and if I had my time again, yeah, I maybe would have gone a bit slower, but then again, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm going to be in January, in March, so it's been hard. I've learnt from my mistakes, and I'd tell anybody else if they were going to do it, just plod along a bit. Like,
go a bit slow
because, yeah, there's been time. Well, it's probably been the hardest year of my life.
Is that because of lack of cash, because you've overstretched on your funds? When you say one of the hardest, what's the reason for it being the hardest? That's lack of funds, I'm guessing, yeah?
Yeah, basically just lack of funds. But it's because you think to yourself, I'm going to spend this money to do that because I want to get to that point, and then because you know it's going to come round in a cycle. With me working as plumbing and heating as well, because I've been trying to do work for both sides of it. When I'm doing these bits, I aren't earning my plumbing wage. So this morning, I've been running around, met some plasters here, met a plumber on another job. I had to go price a job, so I aren't earning any money there. So because I'm caught between the two, I probably haven't earned as much as I did last year. I've got by.
Yeah. You've took your eye off the ball a little bit because you're trying to juggle these these two things, right? So,
but I know it's going to come round from January next year, where if I wanted to jump in a property full time, I could do. But I'm actually going to focus a bit more on my plumbing.
Yeah. We'll come on to that. 1 second, just hold that 1 sec, because we will come on to that. Because I want to make that point as well, because the reason I want to make this point is because I made exactly the same mistake. I overstretched myself, and at one point I had 6 projects on the go. I bought 33 properties in 12 months. Added massive value to my portfolio, completely increased my cash flow. But why I was actually in it, it's that shiny object syndrome, and I'm guessing you had the same thing, where once you've learned how to structure those deals and you see the profit that can be made from property, you start seeing opportunities everywhere. And I'm guessing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing, like me, you probably thought, there's 10 grand, there's another 20, there's another 25. And before you know it, you've got more projects on than what you can handle, right?
So yeah, two of the properties that we've got, if they're at maximum occupancy, they'll be doing 27,000 a year. So
yeah.
We were actually going to do another one of those, and then straight away you go from 25, 50, 75,000.
Yeah.
And because of that, you are, whoa, do you know what? We'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do the other.
And you don't want to lose the deals, right? Because this is my issue, that you see a deal, you see how much profit can be made, and you don't want to lose it. And I'm guessing that's same sort of thing.
Well, the knowledge that you get, you are like a kid in a sweet shop, and you're thinking, and it because I suppose we talked earlier about did you get a buzz from it? Selling club biscuits at school, I can't remember ever thinking to myself, do you know what? Oh yeah, I'm buzzing, I just sold that pack of biscuits for £1, right? I can't ever remember thinking about that, but this property job is just like, you do get a buzz from it. When we've had some offers accepted, or when you're dealing with someone and you're doing a deal with someone, even when I've done things in the past with still saws or motorbikes and cars and that, it's always good to get a deal, but this property job is like, you do get a buzz from it.
Yeah.
So I suppose when we've been in places and we've put a bid in, and you definitely do get a buzz from doing the property side of it. It's probably it's the best thing I've ever done, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I get that exactly the same.
And
the same
because
buzz
of that
as what
buzz,
you get.
You're like, I want to do that again.
Driving forward more and more, yeah.
Yeah, and we do. We probably don't need. Well, we've realised that we have to slow it down a bit. But what I was going to say, the way we're thinking now, these are nearly done, so we've already got the next ones lined up.
Yeah.
And then we're talking all the time about what we're doing next and things like that. So I think a couple of the ones that we've done, we're going to repeat that. The one that we're doing, the 5-bed HMO in Redcar, when it's come together, boom, we're going to take all of that, just repeat it. So where we've done one of those this year, we'll probably do 2 next year, maybe 3. Like I say, now we're starting to build up an income. It's just going to get easier and easier and easier just to keep on doing it, really. Brilliant.
Right, we're getting towards the end. I just want to ask a couple of last questions before we finish off. Just first about your own business. So tell us a little bit about that, and listeners sort of in the local area of what you can offer people out there, because you're still keeping your plumbing business. So tell us what qualifications you have, what do you offer, what's unique about you, and why should people in the area come to you for their plumbing services?
I'm the best plumber in the area. I maybe am.
Confidence, I like that.
Yeah. No, I'm good at my job. There's a few areas that I need to improve. sort of the, what do you call it, the like normal plumbing issues, maybe a bit of timekeeping. I know that because of all this, but I'm going to go big time back into it early next year. I'm going to start building my company up, take on some employees, so that'll help with the reliability.
I don't think there's any plumbers that are reliable, is there? And I think, just one sec on that, and I think that's partly because I sympathise with you, Zia, that with plumbing you deal with a lot of emergency jobs, right? And you kind of, somebody rings and says, right, I've got a burst pipe, and you're off to a job, and that can automatically have an impact on a job that you've had. And I sympathise with you, because I don't think any other tradesmen really have as many emergency call outs as what a plumber faces.
When I started for myself, obviously I'm just a one-man band, so I can only get to so many places at once. And sometimes sometimes it could be whoever's screaming the loudest, because I set up to be like a reactive maintenance firm. But then I suppose when that's not quite going, you take a boiler on, but then you'll get somebody else who wants, they need you there and then. Yeah. So then, especially if I'm doing a bathroom, if I'm there for a week or over a week or something, you can soon get bogged down. But yeah, reactive maintenance, boiler repairs. I'm a commercial engineer as well, so I've got work in schools, Darlington way, something else that I want to sort of develop really, that side of it.
So how can people find you? So what's the plumbing business called? How does somebody search for, if they're looking for a plumber right now, how do they search for you?
Trusted Plumbing and Heating. Trusted Plumbing
and Heating. And have you got a website, a phone number or anything like that?
01642 490 777. I haven't got a website at the moment, but I'm doing some business training with Gemma in March. I'm going to get a website, get my marketing going again. Do a lot of advertising. Or a lot more advertising.
Yeah, but you get a lot of work, don't you? Because I know I've tried to get hold of you in the past, and you're under demand, aren't you? So you clearly do a good job. There's a lot of people who you've got a lot of repeat customers, haven't you? So clearly you do a good job.
The majority of my work is word of mouth, whether it's Facebook or obviously I get a lot of older people. Once you do one for them, you'll pick up work, just or you've done work for so and so, can you come and do this? So a lot of I've only got one ad out to be honest.
Yeah.
And I don't really get a lot off it, because where I'm advertising, there's about 10 other plumbers in it. So basically it's whoever they come to first really. Yeah. But so yeah, the majority of my work is
from word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just before we finish off, I want to ask two final things. So, tell me one thing that you wouldn't do again, or something that went wrong on one of the jobs, or maybe it's a humorous thing or something like that. Bit of a cock up on one of the jobs that you've done. Share something like that with me, and then last of all, I'm going to ask you the question of what would you advise anybody going into property development. So first of all, just tell me something about one of your jobs, something that something maybe humorous, or something you've cocked up on, or something you certainly wouldn't do again.
I think there could be. I'm not saying it's a cock-up, but we could have, maybe if we didn't do three at the same time, we could have probably planned each one a bit better.
So it's the cash flow again. The cash flow is the biggest thing. So,
well, yeah, if we had bucketfuls of cash, we'd be able to do 10 projects, I suppose. But yeah, and with the right planning, we could have concentrated on different areas. Yeah.
So with to finish off, with your experience, because you've been in the building trade now for what? Coming up 20 years? Not
17 years. Since I was 16, yeah.
17 years. You've got quite a lot of experience in property. You've been in property for a lot of years. What would you advise somebody who's going into property development, maybe it's commercial or residential or anything like that? What would you finish off? Tell us, what would you advice would you give the listeners? What's Tommy's words of wisdom?
Oh, my words of wisdom. You need the right people to do your work, especially if you're going to go for a big project. You need to build a good team around you. So we've had a few people do jobs they won't be doing anymore. We've had some people who will be, and will well, they're already booked in for January. Yeah, build up. You need to build up a good, reliable team. So whether that's decorators, scaffolders, everything. And what you find is, the more you're doing, the more you're just sort of getting rid of idiots, I suppose, and you're getting better people. I know I've been talking to some pastors today. They're keen to look after me, work-wise and money-wise, because they see me as being like potentially a big customer. So it's a bit of give and take, really.
Yeah.
They're going to look after me. I'll continue to use them. The same with my builder. Yeah, just definitely, you just need to get the right team.
Getting the right team is the key thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to finish off there. Thank you very much for that, Tommy. So just closing there, it was a great interview with Tommy. If you search around this link, you'll be able to find other videos on the podcast with some of the other mentees that I've personally trained, some of them getting amazing results. We've got people like Mike Warlow, who's going to be talking about his journey, what he's built up. Another guy who's built up a £1 million portfolio in 12 months. He's now providing mortgages, so he's got another string to his bow. We've got some amazing people on the podcast. Make sure you do take a look at the other videos. There's other training videos within the YouTube channel. If you have a look around here, you'll be able to see that there's free content on how to get started with no money, property recycling strategy, and the mindset required for being successful in property, and it's one of my big things that you'll hear me talk on to a lot. So have a look around these videos. I hope you've enjoyed that with Tommy. If you've had some benefit from that, please do share it. If you'd like to ask any comment, if you've got any questions, just comment in below, and myself or Tommy will be able to answer that for you. And I thank you for joining us on this podcast.